Hey there, everybody. Welcome back, my friends. I am really glad that you're here. I want to have a conversation with you today because people in Utah are going to start receiving their property tax notices in July. And then there's a certain period of time that you have to protest or alert the county if there is a problem. So let's dive into your property tax notice, what that looks like, what it means, and just some things for you to be aware of when you are looking at it. Okay, so first of all, property taxes in Utah are due November 30th. They are paid in arrears for the year that we are in. So every year they have to be paid no later than November 30th. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want you to look at is just to make sure that the address is correct, the account number looks correct, the parcel number is correct. You want to make sure that your name is associated with your own property. The county does not mess up very often, but just check that to make sure that it looks right. Okay, now the next thing I want you to look at is on your tax notice, it's called the market value. Some people will call it the assessed value. Now, this market value is not market value like if we're gonna put your home on the market for sale, okay? It's the market value that the assessor's office assigns to your property, and that's the basis for your tax levy. So let's go through and kind of talk about what that means. So if your market value assessed by the county assessor seems high, we can pull comps and protest that if you think you are being over-assessed. Now, the county assessor is not allowed to use the purchase price of your home. So say you bought the property in the last year or so, they are not allowed to use that purchase price for their market value on your property tax notice. Utah is a non-disclosure state, which means that your sales price on your property is not public as far as on the county website. Some of our surrounding states do publish purchase prices, but we don't. Now, the assessor's offices are members of the multiple listing service, and so they do have the ability to look and see what you paid for the property. However, they are legally not allowed to use that as your market value on your property tax notice. So there's 20% of the county that is assessed every single year. So on a 5-year rolling program, 20% of the properties are going to be assessed every single year. And that is part of the formula of how the assessor's office gets the market value for your property that is then sent out on your property tax notice. The second thing I want you to look at, right underneath that's going to say taxable value. So the taxable value, if your property is owner occupied or has a full-time renter in there, you pay 55% of the total. You get a 45% discount. Now, if it is a vacation home, a second home, or a short-term rental, you're going to pay 100% of that assessed property tax. So look at those two numbers, and if it is owner occupied or you have a full-time renter in there, you should be getting a 45% discount. If you are not, this is the time to update the county that it is a full-time occupied property so you can get that great discount. Okay, now the next thing I want you to look at is there's a box that says who the county thinks is going to pay those taxes. Now, if you have a mortgage on the property, likely you are making 1/12 of that property tax amount each month when you make your monthly payment to your mortgage company. Probably also the same scenario with your homeowner's insurance. So you're making 1/12 of that total payment every month, and your mortgage company puts that into an escrow account or an impound account. And then the county sends you the property tax notice, and they also send your mortgage company the property tax notice. And so the mortgage company then writes the check out of that account that they've been holding on your behalf, sends it to the county, and your property taxes are paid through that mechanism. Now, if you don't have a mortgage on your property, or for some reason if you have a mortgage that is not requiring you to pay that monthly impound, then you are obviously responsible for paying that amount no later than November 30th. One thing also to check on this box is if your mortgage has been sold, if your mortgage has been acquired by another company in the last few months, you want to make sure that the treasurer's office has that information so that they are sending the notice to the right mortgagor. So just make sure that you're checking all of that to make sure that if you do have an impound account, the notices are getting sent out appropriately, so there's no mix-up and there's no late payments and there's no penalties just because something got crossed in the mail. So check that one out. Now the second page of your property tax notice is going to give you the details on who is reaching into your property and adding some of your property taxes to their budget. Now, you're gonna look at your property type, okay? This is where you're going to find out if the county thinks that your property is a primary residence or a non-primary residence. So the property type is going to say primary land or primary building, or it's going to say non-primary land and non-primary building. If it says primary land or primary building, you are being assessed at only 55% of the total. If it says non-primary land or non-primary building, you are being assessed at 100% of your property tax amount. That's where you're going to find out what the assessor's office thinks is going on with your property. And if we need to change that, now is the time to do that. There's a form you can fill out and take it to the county. You need to provide a copy of a rental agreement if it's got a full-time tenant in there, or other proof that you are living there as the primary occupant. So let me know if you have any questions on that. It's a pretty significant savings. So you're going to see a tax area. So this particular property that I'm looking at is tax area 6, which means this property is being taxed by Cedar City, the county general fund, charter school levy, state basic school levy, county school levy, county library, county public health, Water Conservancy District, and then a couple of other small ones. But it depends on what tax area you're in, which taxing entity gets to get a piece of those property taxes. So look for that and make sure that you have a good understanding of who it is that is reaching into those property taxes and getting their budget paid for out of those property taxes. And if you have questions on any of that, don't call the assessor, don't call the treasurer, call the taxing entity. All of these taxing entities are public, and so you should be able to take a good look at their budget. Now, your next line down is going to be if you have a special assessment. There's not a ton of these right now in this area, but occasionally I do see those. So I've seen special assessments for putting in sewer where there wasn't sewer before, maybe paving roads if the roads were dirt, installing or upgrading a storm drain system, anything that is for the public. The residents that are receiving the benefit of that, they will be assessed that special assessment, and that's going to show up on your property tax notice. So take a look at that and see if there's one of those in your area. Now, the next line is abatements. I've actually had a couple of clients in the last year who were disabled veterans. Thank you for your service. Because they were disabled veterans, they qualified for a property tax abatement, which means that they pay whatever percentage of disability they have, that's how much their property taxes are reduced. So you go through all of this math, and then if you do get an abatement, if you are a disabled veteran, elderly, there's several different categories. So if you need help with that, let me know. But there are some opportunities for some very specific circumstances to have your property taxes either reduced or 100% gone away, just depending on what your circumstances are. So watch for that, and if you fall into one of those specific categories, let's make sure that you get that benefit. Okay, let me know in the comments if you have questions on any of these things, if there are maybe some additional things that you would like to know about how the county budgets work, how the city budgets work, how that translates into getting onto your property tax notice. If you have questions about the value, if you have questions about how to get that 45% reduction in your property tax amount, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks again, you guys. I'll see you soon.